Kia ora e hoa.
Kia ora. Kia ora mamete.
I'm going to start by reading a piece that was written about Kiri and her business in the Herald, December last year. Kiri Nathan may not be churning out endless collections each season, nor are her designs worn by every hot young thing about town. But she is one of New Zealand's most important fashion designers right now. Since 2010, her label has made a significant contribution to upholding the values of Māoridom through her designs. Hand-woven accessories, such as the cloak that I'm wearing, custom dresses, contemporary iterations of traditional korowai and kakahu, and a range of Panamu jewellery and artworks hand-carved by her husband Jason. The couple keeping Māori culture alive through their work. So usually, Kiri, I start at the beginning with people, but actually, when I was researching this, I thought I actually have to start in the middle. I actually want to start with you telling us about Beyonce, addressing Beyonce and how that came about.
That old Beyonce story keeps coming back, eh? It doesn't go away, that one. So, I would like to probably take it back to a simple relationship. My son's friend came to stay with us for a while while they were doing their internship. His girlfriend worked at a shoe store in Newmarket. Someone walked into that store one day. They didn't know who he was, but he had a limited edition pair of shoes on, and there's only 10 made in the world. So they were like, he's somebody. Shut the doors of the store and looked after him, VIP styles. Ends up that was Beyonce's uncle, and he invited them to the show. So they formed a relationship with Beyonce's uncle. I put a post out because we were a little bit mortified that we couldn't even go to the show. And said if anyone happens to bump into Beyonce, thinking in my mind actually that we had a lot of friends who are in media, that someone might be able to sort of like put us together. However, at the time I didn't realise that there was zero contact. Beyonce had zero contact with anyone in New Zealand, let alone media. So I put a post up, tongue-in-cheek, and said, if anyone bumps into Beyonce, just let her know she can come round for a barbie, you know, we'll hook her up, blah, 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 and just left it at that, kind of put it out into the universe. This young girl got in touch with me straight away and said, I've just told Beyonce's uncle about you and what you do. Would you be keen to come to the show tomorrow night and, you know, meet her and gift something? Because they think that would really resonate with her, given her roots and connection to her Indigenous culture. And long story short, we stayed up for more than 24 hours to create the two pieces that were finally gifted to her, and another piece as well for her baby at the time, Blue Ivy. And when we arrived, I think we got screened by her tour manager of 10 years and her uncle, just to make sure that we weren't axe murderers. And once they, arrived at the fact that we weren't, and we had so many crossover stories of culture, they were like, look, we think you should stay, come and have a VIP ticket to watch the show. This is her last song for the show that night. We'll come down the tunnel, we'll grab you. You come back through the tunnel while she's up on the little bit of stage that's in the middle of the arena, and then we'll wait for her at backstage and you can go ahead and meet her and gift. And so we watched the show and it was amazing, you know, as you can imagine. So we were all hyped up from the show, and then her song came on. She came from the platform, down the tunnel, on the little stage, started to sing her Halo, and the manager came and got us and said, right, it's time. And we, just Jason and myself we were running down the little tunnel that only Beyonce goes down. And there were thousands of people like screaming, and we were like, oh no! You don't know who we are, but we're in the tunnel. We're in the tunnel. And so everyone was just screaming. We went backstage. Her crew, the New Zealand crew, Stan Walker, who'd opened the show that night, everyone was waiting there to do haka tautoko. And so we participated in the haka tautoko for her, and then we went up and gifted her. And what was really lovely about the whole thing is that it started by just one really simple and authentic relationship. And then I feel like it ended, like it was really simple and beautiful, and then it ended with Beyonce emotional and in tears, accepting these gifts because of the connection of culture. Yeah.
That is a fantastic segue into 2010. So take us back to 2010, and some of the things you've just talked about there: integrity, culture, the grand universe delivering, but your quiet determination behind it. Tell us about all of that and how the Kiri Nathan label was born.
It was quite an organic thing in the beginning, and I think probably most of you, or possibly a lot of you, would be in the same boat, in as much as when you start something, if you knew how hard it was going to be, you may think twice before you start. So it was a very organic process for us. In 2008, I had my 4th child, and so I was at home with the children, and I had a little bit of time up my sleeve, so I entered the Style Pacifica show, and we were lucky enough to win the Traditionally Inspired and the Supreme Award that night, presented by the Prime Minister at the time, and in front of my ailing 85-year-old grandmother, who was really like the inspiration for me to get started in sewing and so forth. So it was a really special night for us personally, but it was also the night that we thought, I think we should, maybe start a business, because, we know so much about it, anything about it. We should start a business. We should start a business in the rag trade in the middle of a recession. That's a great idea. And we should create a high-end label with a Māori aesthetic, because that happens every day, so that'll be really easy. And so 2008 was really the turning point, but it took me 2 years, because I'd never studied business. I had no idea what the structure of the industry was, or the networks that you should be aligned with to try and get some traction and get moving. So we just ended up entering all the fashion competitions that were out at the time. So we entered Cult Couture and won that, and then we entered Miro Mora. It was the inaugural year of Miro Mora, and we won that and had our first showing at Fashion Week. And it was all it just kind of like rolled from one thing to the next. And in 2010, because I knew nothing about business, I did a business course which actually registered the business. I was like, oh, okay, all right, okay, we're registered. And then it was another 2 years after that, to be perfectly honest, before we really started to trade. So there was 4 years of just figuring out who we were, what our product offering was, what wasn't going to work, because we got closed doors everywhere. I was either a competition designer or oh, hey, kia ora, oh, cute, or I was a home sewer, or I was just put into a whole lot of boxes because there wasn't really a box for us at that time. And I think we just knew that it needed to be done. So we just kind of dug in. And so every door that got closed, we'd find a different way of getting to market. Who do we want to be selling to? Oh, okay, how do we get to them? We can't go through the usual channels.
So you did try to go through the usual channels.
Yeah.
You made a virtue out of necessity in terms of having created a whole different way to go to market, but you started the more traditional way and then said, okay, we'll have to do it differently. Is that how it sort of evolved?
Yeah, and I think that comes down to confidence, when you're starting out in
bravery. That's courage.
Well,
some people would go, okay, good idea, couldn't make it happen. You go, there's got to be another way.
I mean lack of confidence. It's kind of like lack of self-confidence and knowing that you can do it by yourself. And so because it was all new and it was all new learning, I thought that the people that were already out in the industry doing it must have the models that work. So how do they do it, and what are they doing, and can I have a chat to them? I had a chat to Liz. Liz sat down for an hour with me way back when we first started, which was lovely. And
you also mentioned Anna Streeter, and you talked to Anna Streeter as well.
Oh, I didn't just talk to her. She saw me win a couple of sections at Cult Couture, and she asked to have a chat with me the next day, because I was really unsure of where we were going, and so I thought the best thing to do would be to talk to people that were doing it. And so that was on the Saturday. By the Monday, she'd sent me a contract.
She moves quite fast,
Anna. She was like, okay, I want to do a collaborative label. I'll pay for it. You'll get a percentage of all the sales. We want to put you up in a little space in Ponsonby, come down to the manufacturing unit every day and learn stuff on the ground, so forth. So I was like, the hell? This is amazing. So I jumped in there and did that. Drove down to Morrinsville and back every day for 6 months.
Have you always said yes when something like that's come along out of the blue?
Yep.
Yes, I'll work
Always.
it out, I'll do it. Because you
Always.
still had 3 children under 5 at this point.
Yeah. 3 children under 5 there, 2 older ones, grandchildren on the way. And it was 3 hours of driving every day. But I knew that at the time was the only way forward.
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot in that time, a lot of what to do and a lot of what not to do. I also learned, as part of that whole talk around self-confidence, that although it's really beneficial to sometimes see how other people build a model, to be very, very aware of what your model is and what works for you and what fits into your values. And I felt that as soon as I moved away from that, while I was in that period, and I just put it down to learning, the business itself kind of slowed down because I was in a learning mode. And then as soon as I moved away from that, we started to take off again and got invited to, we were the first Kiwis actually to be invited to the international showcase at London Fashion Week.
And that was through the British...
British Commission and the British Fashion Council. Yeah, so we headed up there and bootstrapped it, man. Like, we had nothing. We were lucky Jason's sister lived up there, so she could feed us. But that was an experience in itself as well. Yeah.
And I first saw your designs. Actually, I think I saw them, Farrah Palmer wearing them at the Women of Influence Awards. I thought, wow, she was wearing red. And it was so stunning. And she said, oh, it's a Kiri design. And then Tara Lorigan, or you maybe sent something out to Company of Women saying, come to Fashion Week. And I went to your show last year with several other women from Company of Women. I don't know if there's anyone here who went that day.
The whole middle section, front row, was all Company of Women.
Yes. And, I mean, I love Fashion Week. I go every year. But your show had an energy and a mana and a sort of a... I don't know, it was very, very moving. So just tell us about that and, you know, that show and what's happened for you since then.
Well, Dame Pieter personally asked us to come and show, and so we said no 3 times because we didn't really feel like that was our market or means to market. And at the end of the day, Fashion Week is a trade show. So if you can't get sales at the end of it, then it comes down to ego more than anything else. And she said, no, I think it would be really, really great for you to come and do this show this year. So 4 weeks out from Fashion Week, we said yes. We created a new collection. We filled the room. We brought in sponsors that were all Māori product based. We had a chat to the production company right at the end, and we said, look, if we're coming in, it's really important for us to maintain who we are, and that means, for instance, before we start anything on the day, can everyone just come together, stop what they're doing, come together, and we'll have a karakia to bless the day. We'll come in, we'll put everything in place, and then we'll do a sweep afterwards and clean to make sure that, you know, we're just processing in the way that we would ordinarily process. And those things were all very different and new.
Yes.
They said no one's ever said that they'll come through and clean, and no one's ever done karakia before a showing and so forth. And I said, oh, yeah, I'm not going to apologise for trying to introduce something different and something that's real to us. However, you know, come and be a part of it. You know, it'll be a really nice experience for you guys as well. So we brought in our Fashion Week provide dresses and a full, you know, backstage team and so forth. And oh, you're just lapping it up, aren't you? And we brought in all our own people, and that in itself was just a really lovely space backstage. Although the Medal Motor show has been, you know, this was their 10th year this year, I'm not sure that there'd ever really been a show that talked to the challenge that comes from having a Māori aesthetic, having a Māori lens, when you're moving in the New Zealand fashion realm.
I could feel it in that show because, you know, many of the shows, the models are just skinny clothes horses and they're just doing their job. Yes, they look great. Some of them look bored. Some of them look, you know, famished. And some of them like strutting, but it's just a job. But your wahine were so proud, and the combination of wearing your clothes and your husband's punamu, it was like they were standing in solidarity with each other. It wasn't just the formation, the way they moved on the runway, the way they worked as a team. For me, it felt different from any other show.
Yeah, it was a pretty special moment actually. And what we decided when we said 4 weeks out was that if we went there and we did this, that we had to have a voice, and we had to be able to voice our journey honestly, for starters, and then we had to have a voice that sort of encouraged all the other, you know, Indigenous creatives that were maybe in the room, that we tried to invite as many as we could of,
Yes.
that there is a space and
Yes.
there's a pathway for them. And so people don't give standing ovations at Fashion Week after a show. They just kind of
Move on to the next one.
grab the goodie bag and move on, you know. We had a full house standing
we did.
ovation.
Yeah.
And people were crying, and it was it was a really I don't know, it felt like a really honest moment, and a time where everyone in the room, regardless of culture or whatever, felt unified, which was it's quite powerful. Yeah.
I hope it worked for you commercially as well.
It did. It did. That was the other thing. We had to have a voice, and then we had to have some kind of sales avenue afterwards. And so the universe just provided, really. Like again, social media. Thank you, Facebook. We put out a post saying, "Hey, look, for all of you who have said, you know, if you need anything, just holler." I said, "Now's the time." And so we got Silo 6, you know, given for the after party and everything that you could possibly need of, and delivered at the highest level for the entire show and after function, where we pretty much sold out.
That seems a good segue into your wider role now in terms of being a doyen of the, calling it the Māori aesthetic, if you like, the sort of the authentically New Zealand Māori designers that are coming through, and the hikoi you recently led to China with a I don't know, delegation. What was it? What did you call yourselves?
Yeah, a group of yeah. So it ended up being called a delegation, and NZT and MFAC came together and they said the ministerial delegation is coming through. Kiri Nathan's a member of that delegation. However, she's also leading the delegation through China. So as far as all of the government sectors are concerned, we have 2 delegations coming, and they welcomed us and manaki'd us at that level. And so all of our meets were so high level, it was quite phenomenal. But that started from 2017. I took 5 designers over, and that started from a couple of young Māori designers coming up to me and just saying, "Hey, can you help me? I can't source fabrics, I can't seem to work this out or that out." And the only way I could do it was to take them to the largest fabric markets in the world. So I went out. I'd never ever gone for funding before in my life. Went out, fumbled my way through that, made a ridiculous pitch. It was terrible. When I look at it now, it was absolutely awful pitch. But it got enough to get those 5 designers over there and move their businesses forward positively. And then that developed into, again, it was a little bit like the business. It was quite an organic sort of evolution. That turned into taking 15 designers over just earlier this year, and meetings with Alibaba Global. So usually if you go and have a meet with Alibaba, you get 15 minutes in the foyer.
Yes.
We had 2 hours with one of their high-level international executives, and the conversations are open, and they really want to see these Māori labels in there. We met with Lane Crawford, which is like the equivalent of Harrods, but in China. And we were, oh my gosh, they really know how to look after you. over there and really deliver you the information that you need to try and integrate into the market. So at every touch point, there was relationships formed that were viable to getting into market, but also they were really natural, and that was a really, really positive hikoi.
And that's carried on since you've come back home for
so
designers?
Those were just hikoi, and so during that time it was obvious that something formal needed to be put in place. So what I'm trying to do at the moment is create an entire ecosystem. So that starts with creating the community or bringing the community together. So there's been Māori fashion designers around forever and ever, and Pacifica designers around forever, and they're amazing. However, we've never been able to pull a community of these designers together. So that was the first point, pull the community together, and in a way where everyone is supporting each other's growth. So we're not fighting against each other for this tiny market. We're coming together, creating a louder voice, and then taking that to the world. So we don't have to scrap over this 5% of the market here. We take it out globally. And the first part's creating the community. Second part was mentorship programs. That's going to run for 12 months now, just to bring everyone's labels up to the level that they need to be. NZTE approached us to create the first Māori fashion coalition with a primary focus on China, secondary on US. And NZTE have not formed a coalition with any fashion designers since 1991. So that in itself is huge. At the same time, they're forming a coalition with Mindful Fashion. So this is a great opportunity, and we can't stuff it up. So mentoring the designers up so that so they're offering basically business and cultural excellence is the next part. And then we're creating the first online department store. We're working with people at the moment to develop the first artificial intelligence manufacturing unit so that people can remain New Zealand made and it's cost effective. There's just so many different arms to this.
Yes.
But it's all necessary.
And you've still got good support from NZTE?
Yeah, NZTE have been amazing. MFAT are amazing. I've just started working with Callaghan Innovation around the artificial intelligence manufacturing space, and also different capabilities. So if you go to Fashion Week and you watch a show, and you do this every time that you watch a show, you might see a garment that you're like, oh, I like that one, and then you don't see it again. The show finishes, you leave, you might go to the after function, you're like, what is it, where is it, you know. So we're creating a augmented reality intercart. So you have on your phone, you're watching the runway, and you just drag it.
Wouldn't every designer want one of those?
Yeah, so it's a world first. And the other thing that we're doing is a AR lookbook. So what that basically is you can go onto our site, get your phone, it'll do a 3D scan of your body, and then put that information into the lookbook on the website, and then that will put your body into the clothes so that you can see what it looks like. Because all the lookbooks are 6 foot, size 8, you know, yeah, really normal people.
Open technology, open IP, or are you going to patent it?
We don't know yet. We're sort of at this very early stages of that, and tech's not my thing, but I know what's needed, so we're working towards trying to get those gaps filled. And what that basically means is that not only could everyone remain New Zealand made and it be cost effective and sustainable, you know, for generations to come, but it also means that this is not just for Māori fashion designers, this is for all of New Zealand designers. It's also like the Southern Hemisphere could suddenly start coming to New Zealand to manufacture rather than having to go out to India or China.
I can absolutely see why you won the Blake Leadership Award last month. Seriously, this stuff is groundbreaking. Were you blown away?
I felt very, not embarrassed. I don't like all the attention around things like that, because of course you might be the person that's standing up there receiving this accolade, but it's not you. There's been my husband, my children, you know, friends, mentors. There's just so many people that come into play whenever you move in a positive direction. And so when things start coming off and you start getting acknowledgements for things, it's really great because it actually opens up the door to other conversations. In a lot of spaces, it's currency.
It is indeed.
And so for that, I understand that space, and the community, like the Sir Peter Blake community, is beautiful. Yeah, Lady Pippa and just all of them. It actually feels like a very whānau-based, well, it is community, which is quite different from a lot of the other awards that I've been to in the past. So that was really nice that it was that particular award. And we had, I think, 32 mates come along that night, and they all wore Kiri Nathan, and it was really awesome because there was all these different eras and collections throughout the years, different body shapes, different nationalities, and everyone was in KN Kakahu, so that was pretty special because that had never happened before. And also my 70-year-old Pākehā dad got up and did a haka tautoko. It was the first haka in his life. I can honestly tell you it was probably the most terrifying moment of his life. I didn't know why he wasn't drinking, because he's a drinker, I didn't understand why he wasn't drinking. He was all weird and everything, and I didn't know that they were going to do that. And also my husband, who has never done a haka in public ever before, he led it. So there was lots of really special moments that night, and it wasn't about winning an award. It was more of like an acknowledgement of all of the people that had been there, for that really long journey.
There was a lot of posts about it on Facebook, and it had this wonderful feeling of celebration and of togetherness and, a whānau feeling, as you say.
Yeah, it's really special. We're very conscious of the people that we're quite protective of our personal space. Like for years and years, I never went to any of the fashion things, my favourite space is just with Jason the kids at home, just hanging, and we're very, very protective of who we let into that space. And so all those people that were there that night, we loved them. And yeah, it was really cool. That was really cool.
Tell us about doing a business with your husband and starting a business with 3 young kids who are now presumably, early teenagers.
Yeah.
Doesn't always get easier as they become teenagers than when they were little. You can't fund them out so easily.
I know. It's okay. So there's a couple of factors to that. The first thing is we didn't know what we were doing. The second thing is we thought it would be a great idea to start a business that we could work from home, so that I could raise the children and work from home. And quickly learned that that was like, oh my gosh, one of the biggest things was trying to make sure that we built the business structure and the business model in a way that didn't compromise our whānau. So we're 100% online, and I'm there every day when the kids get home from work, except for today. Company of Women is that important to me.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I was going to ask you about that though, because you have acknowledged Tara's support and Company of Women. When did you become a member?
The first year, the founding year.
Yeah,
the founding year.
One of the inaugural.
I came with Rhonda and your sister. Yeah.
So what has that done for you? What has Company of Women done for you?
In the early stages, it was hearing people talk about their failures. Okay. That was really, really beneficial to me. People talk about, and these were people who were very experienced and accomplished entrepreneurs. And they'd get up and they'd talk about when it all went wobbly, the squiggly line.
Sure.
And so the most beneficial thing for me back then was like, oh, okay, so all of the challenge that I'm going through is totally normal. It's like when you have your first baby and you talk to another mum who's just had their first baby, you think you're nuts, but you're not. It's normal behaviour. And so it was almost validating that, yes, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. You're going to fall over, and that's fine. Learn from it and move on. So that, in the early days, that was really, really beneficial to my mindset.
That you didn't have to be perfect. You didn't have to get it 100% right first time.
I love failure. Like, I really do. I really, really love it. It's always where I've had my best learning. Whenever I start to feel really scared about something, I start to get excited immediately afterwards, because I think, if I'm doing something scary, then I'm challenging myself, or I'm going into a space that hasn't been pioneered into yet, and that's cool, because when we get to the other side of it, you know, we've broken new ground. But also the relationships. So because I started way back then, there must have been like maybe 20, 30 women in the room back then. And so not in a million years would I have been able to have a conversation with these entrepreneurs who were the best in New Zealand. Just one-on-one conversations.
Any other way.
Warm, safe, really, really safe conversations. You know, like Sharon and just Lee Matthias and Winnis. You know, it was those relationships were really, really great. And it wasn't like they were mentoring, but just conversations around mindset. And again, I come back to self-confidence. Yeah, never underestimating what you're doing, how you're doing it, or whatever. Just always persevere. I mean, like, the only time you fail is when you give up, right?
I'm beginning to feel like Tara might be right. We have this conversation a lot. I say to her, most women entrepreneurs don't suffer from lack of self-confidence, otherwise there wouldn't be women entrepreneurs. And she says, you'd be surprised. Yeah, no, it took me a while to really sit in my power. Really look at my product offerings and what we were doing and the human beings that we were being out in the world, and think, yeah, that feels good. That feels good. The best sales tip I ever got was listening to Sharon talk about when she started out at Piso Direct, and she would go out and she would sell her ass off on the floor, and she was like, I genuinely felt like I was doing that person a favor by getting this product into their hands, and I was like, I feel like that, but I'm not doing it. So that was years back now, and I always remember that. And then more recent than Beyonce, you've been involved in dressing another celebrity, and Liz Mitchell as well. The three of us were part of the 50 women invited to hear Megan speak. She actually speaks incredibly articulately and eloquently. You just never see the royals speak, do you? There's always just pictures at an event in Government House, and Liz dressed our wonderful Governor General Patsy Reddy, and Jason made a panamu for Megan. So
yeah, and I dressed the Prime Minister that day, so it was a really lovely celebration of Kiwi fashion on that day. It was really nice. And also,
you and I were wearing very similar Kiri Nathan outfits.
Yeah.
Because we've got breasts, you see. So, you know, there's a certain look that works for women who've got breasts.
Yeah, no, that was a really cool experience, more so for the relationship that's been developing for quite some time with our Governor General, who I just adore. I think she's amazing, and also our Prime Minister, who again I adore as well. Like, yeah, they're beautiful. So Jacinda has something at the moment, and I believe is delivering a speech at the UN today.
Is she wearing Kiri Nathan
I hope
today?
so. Worked really hard to get that finished.
I must say, I did like that red trouser suit she was wearing when she met Trump. I don't know if that's sort of Labour Party or the red of the American flag, but I do think trousers are quite good. Often you sit down in a skirt and you go, oh no. So I think that was probably quite good, but it was a very nice photo anyway.
It's interesting because all those opportunities have been opened up through relationship building. It's not through, I've never paid for any marketing. I've never had a PR company.
Would you?
Well, I've had a couple of people pitching, you know, different bits and pieces, but I don't know if that's the way that we really want to roll. I don't know if I want to be on the cover of everything and in everyone's face all the time. All I really want to do is create a really beautiful brand and business, and connect with people who really want to be a part of that. So
you're actively trying to grow, to scale up?
Yeah. So, well, not for the last 12 months. I've been working on this whole kahui so that everyone can scale up. So it's not just our label. And what had happened through all the challenge and finding different ways in and outs of things earlier on, we were at a platform where we were getting really great traction within the government, within the entertainment sector, within the corporate sector. However, no other Māori designers were. It was like nobody else. These people that were in our marketplace didn't even know about these other designers. So in order for this entire industry to thrive, they need to be in front of people, but they also needed to lift their game.
It feels a bit weird asking this, Kiri, because it's so fundamental to Kiri Nathan. I mean, your brand is your name, it's you, it's authentic. But tell us about you as a Māori woman doing this, what it means to you, what you're trying to create.
Right from day dot, we were very, very conscious of our responsibility to Te Ao Māori. So we are, as creatives and as a business, being inspired by our culture. And so therefore, there is a direct responsibility to that culture. So that's been fundamentally cemented into our being since day one. Also, I guess it's just who we are as people to make sure that we are not saying that we're something that we're not, to not label the pieces that we're creating as things that they are not. For instance, kurawai is the word for a muka, like a flax, refined flax fibre, natural fibre that's then woven. It is the most beautiful, beautiful process, and that's what traditional kurawai are made from, whereas we always reference our contemporary woven pieces as kakahu, which is a garment. Just little things like that, not misappropriating what we're doing out there, and also being very, very responsible about the wider sense of what we're doing, not just making clothes and selling clothes. We're drawing from a culture, we're creating a community, and then we are sharing that. And yes, there is reciprocation through pūtero money, but the responsibility we hold very, very, very close to our heart. We need to be able to get up, this is what we say to ourselves, we need to be able to get up every day, look our kids in the eye, and feel okay about who we are as mum and dad, as human beings, but also as business people. Yeah.
That aroha that you talk about in the making of the kakahu is obvious at the Company of Women Hall of Fame ceremony. I've been to several of those now. And occasionally, it's a woman who's already a member of Company of Women. Often it's not. It doesn't matter whether they were already part of the community or not. They are blown away when you go on stage and you explain what the significance and put the cloaks on the new inductees. And everyone in that huge auditorium at ASB can feel it. In fact, that ceremony was so powerful that the new CEO of ASB, after being part of that ceremony, decided that she's a returning New Zealander, that she had to start learning te reo.
No.
And that's really all credit to Tara, who's really had that embedded in Company from the beginning, but also to you, Kiri, for showing up all the time, for doing it with such aroha, and for doing it in a way that actually says this is about relationship, because every single inductee gets that.
Yeah, it's a pretty powerful evening for a lot of reasons. I think that Tara's created a space that makes the inductees feel safe. So they talk about their personal stories in a way that you probably haven't heard before, and that's really lovely. People that may have a reputation for being hardened or, not very sharing of their story, just tend to be the complete opposite in that environment, and so that in itself is lovely. The Māori component of the ceremony is really, it's a combination of Kim Murawai and the beautiful composed karanga that she creates for each of the inductees. It's a combination of, to be perfectly honest, it's a very mainstream and Pākehā environment, but yes. I feel like they feel very safe and inclusive with a Māori in what is actually a very Māori, traditionally Māori thing to do, and that's probably not a space that many have experienced that are inducted. So that's really special, and I think means a lot. And the kōrero that the inductees have with me afterwards, or even before, around how special they felt in that moment, is much more than me or what we're doing. It's basically about the sharing of culture.
Yes.
That's what it comes down to. We just happen to be this tiny little part of the sharing process.
Yes.
But yeah, there's so many different examples in this kōrero that we've just had. So at the Fashion Week show, where people are emotional and crying and standing ovation. At the Hall of Fame, you know, Beyonce, she probably gets gifted goodness knows what. But when you have a true connection through culture, it's powerful.
Yeah, it is. And I really want to shout out to both you and to Kim, who I am very beginning days of learning te reo with myself, because you have chosen to share with Pākehā. I mean, Māori are doing it for themselves. Of course, I'd never name names, but there's plenty of Māori who are doing it. They don't need Pākehā. So for this country to be what we are called to be in the world, it needs to be Māori and Pākehā. And I really honour those of you who are, you know, trying to actually do it for your people, but also really for the whole country.
Yeah, I think what I'd really love to see is a larger community of Māori within Company of Women, a larger community of lots of different minority groups and so forth, because then it just becomes the space that is truly, truly not just inclusive, because people use that word all the time, not just sustainable, because people use that word all the time. It becomes what we'd like to see New Zealand look like in all spaces. So it becomes normalised culture and the mixing of culture.
And it's quite hard to know what stage we're at now, because as you know, with SheEO, we decided at the last summit, after having 2 years of all white women on the stage in terms of the 5 winners, and Vicky and I said we're not doing that again. So we've created, the whole group made a commitment that this coming cycle, which starts next year, there will be at least one Māori woman-led business on the stage as one of the ventures that gets funding and the support, etc. Because otherwise we can't get the shift. So we have to do something to make that happen, to propel it. That's a fantastic word. I'm
Thank you. You're welcome.
Appropriate that in a heartbeat. Have to do something to propel it, because otherwise it will be too slow.
If we look at New Zealand and we look at our history and we look at where we are right now, it's going to take generations for a shift to happen where everything is normalised and comfortable and everyone's gelling. And the only way to do, or to propel or get that moving faster is for those kinds of opportunities to happen. So that, and this comes back to your kōrero around getting awards and so forth, so that ears that wouldn't hear things before can suddenly hear things. It's like it's the same conversation, but people are open to hearing it. And so that's happening lots and lots in lots of different spaces, and that's really cool. But it's certainly going to need a lot of help from the wider, communities and out there.
Okay. Ngā mihi aroha.
Aw, kia ora.